Hey everybody, and welcome to another segment of AstrologyAnswers.com's weekly forecast. My name is Terence. The week begins on Monday, April the 28th at 2025 with the moon in Taurus. That describes the overall public tone. But the day before, on the 27th, was the new moon in Taurus. And we have a new moon every 4 weeks. The new moon prioritizes and draws our attention to a new domain of life overall. And there's a hangover of that, if you will, with Monday, with the moon continuing in Taurus. That energy of Taurus is more calming, more grounding, more steady, because last month's new moon was in fiery, impatient, aggressive Aries, and it was also a powerful solar eclipse. Now, with the moon yesterday, with the new moon in Taurus, today on the 28th, as we continue into this week with the moon, that public tone in Taurus, we're going to feel more grounded, more steady. Now, Taurus can be very much focused on finances and financial security. Now, the moon transits from sign to sign every 2.5 days. By late afternoon, Pacific time, the moon in Taurus will cross over liberating progressive Uranus that's been in Taurus since 2018. Now, when once a month, when the emotional moon crosses over Uranus, there could be emotional breakthroughs, emotional upsets. It can be very exciting energy, very stressful energy. But just keep in mind, it only lasts for an hour or two, and then it goes back to more of that calming, steady Taurus energies. Tuesday, the moon will be in Gemini. Gemini, very different from Taurus, as Taurus is very concentrated, steady, persevering energies, can be very stubborn energies. Moon in Gemini, the emotional tone, is more of this restlessness, jumping from one errand, one idea, brainstorming. There's a lot of mental stimulation, a lot of restlessness, lots of conversations. That moon in Gemini, around 6, 7 a.m. Pacific time, will be trining or in harmony with powerful Pluto. This can indicate when you're trying to express your feelings, the moon, with Pluto, they can be very profound, very deep. You could be really expressing yourself in very deep emotional ways. And just after the moon is pulling away from powerful Pluto, it then starts forming what we call a sextile, which is 60 degrees. It's positive opportunities to ambitious, assertive Mars. So that's going to be more like 6, 7, 8, 9 a.m. Pacific time. That starts to trigger a lot of emotional excitement and drive and ambition. So we're waking up on Tuesday, well, depending on where you are in the world, but especially Pacific time, where there's a lot of passion to get motivated and to maybe get on with these material goals of the new moon in Taurus. On Wednesday, the moon continues in fickle, stimulating, adaptable Gemini. And around 10, 11, maybe up till noon Pacific time, the Gemini moon will be crossing over, as it does once a month, expansive Jupiter. This could be very favorable for traveling. That's the Jupiter. But all that Gemini curiosity could be good for learning, for writing. But emotionally, which is the moon, that Jupiter brings a lot of optimism, expansiveness. Now, pleasurable, creative, romantic Venus had been for the last several weeks in Pisces. Venus transiting Pisces can be very romantic, highly creative, but on Wednesday the 30th, Venus, once a year, is moving into Aries. And the Venus are these desires in Aries can be more aggressive, more assertive, more willful when it comes to relationships. So instead of being all dreamy and romantic with Venus in Pisces, now with Venus in Aries, you're more looking for action. You're more looking for having a lot of fun on a real, physical, active level. And that'll go on for the next several weeks. Now, on Thursday, the moon will have shifted into emotional, nurturing Cancer. And when the moon's in Cancer, we're more inclined to want to retreat, to reflect, to stay closer to home, be more involved with family, with domestic projects. And remember, the sun is also in Taurus, and the moon will be in harmony with the sun in Taurus by early evening Pacific time. But all day with the sun in Taurus and the moon in Cancer, there's a lot of this grounding, nurturing, stabilizing energies. On Friday, May the 2nd, the moon, and highly emotional, intuitive, compassionate moon in Cancer, will be squaring or in tension with rational communication Mercury from around 6, 7, maybe up to 8 a.m. Pacific time. You have to be careful during that hour or two because your communications, your expectations may be very much triggered by your emotional biases. This can be a time of really expressing your feelings, but then you may be feeling it's sort of like this moon in Cancer is very emotional, but it's in tension with Mercury, which is very rational. So you may be thrown off when it comes to communications in that 6, 7, maybe 8 a.m. Pacific time. But all day, as Venus, as I said, on Wednesday, went into 0 degrees of Aries. On Friday, it's going to be crossing and joining Neptune, which is now at 0 degrees of Aries, all up until all of April to the beginning of May. Venus with Neptune can trigger tremendous romanticism. And with the Venus in Aries is being very passionate and really going for it. This can be highly creative energies also. It's very dreamy, romantic energies. You may be more when the Venus was in Pisces, you're more inclined for unrequited love, holding back, keeping your feelings to yourself. But with it now in ambitious, aggressive Aries, all that romanticism, you may be more compelled to let the other person know how you feel. On Saturday, the moon goes into dynamic, passionate, romantic Leo. It's a fire sign, so there's a lot of dynamic energies. And the moon goes into Leo at 4:50 a.m. Pacific time. By 6 to 8 a.m., that moon in fiery Leo will be trining or in harmony with the romantic Neptune Venus in Aries. And Leo is fire, Aries is fire. So there's So in this early morning Pacific time, 6 to 8 a.m., there's still all this rush and romanticism. By noon, maybe 11 noon to 1 a.m. p.m. Pacific time, the emotional moon will be in opposition with powerful Pluto. Opposition is relationships, interacting with others. So where the day could be starting off very dreamy and heady and romantic, it starts to become really, you might be having a lot of intense power struggles with that moon to Pluto. And later in the afternoon, Pacific time, the moon in Leo will be crossing over passionate, fiery Mars in Leo. So that as we're going into a Saturday evening, the moon Mars, more on the positive, can be all this passionate, dynamic, outgoing energies. But depending on your individual horoscope and other planetary influence to your chart, that moon Mars, you may be also feeling very anxious, very restless, maybe even somewhat tense and stressed and argumentative, but it only lasts for an hour or two. And if you're feeling all this tremendous stress, I would advise go exercise, go take a nice long walk. On Sunday, the moon continues in Leo and in squaring in tension with the sun in Taurus. Now, first of all, they're both Leo and Taurus are what we call fixed signs. Fixed signs can be very possessive, can be very stubborn, can be very focused energy and doesn't like change. Now, here's the emotional moon in tension with the ego sun, and your emotions may be out of sync for the day as Pluto, transformational Pluto, goes retrograde in the sign of Aquarius for the next several months. So we're going to, if Pluto will be retrograding at 3 degrees of Aquarius. If that transit of Pluto is impacting your horoscope, impacting any planets with that 3 degrees of Aquarius, you're going to be feeling much more of an intensity, but going retrograde, and it's Pluto, you may be pulling more in, like what is going on? Why is this happening to me? It's good for soul searching and counseling, but you could be feeling a lot of intense inward energies. I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next week with my next segment. Until then, be safe and well.